This is Walking the Ground with General Grant, and you are at Ruggles Battery at Shiloh National Military Park. It is on this spot that Daniel Ruggles, on the afternoon of April the 6th, began gathering artillery from all over the field. There were a total of 178 guns at Shiloh. 55 to 60 of them were here. Now you can see here 11 guns, and off in the distance 8 more. That's 19 pieces of heavy artillery, and there were 55 or more here. That would have been 3 times what you can see now. They were facing across Duncan Field, which is what you are now looking at. Across that field, that tree line, is what became famous as the Hornet's Nest. Those artillery pieces were firing about 900 yards across this field into that tree line directly in front of you. Farmer Duncan had been farming this so the field was open. Now, as you can see, here is some of the array of artillery pieces to represent what was here that day. This is 19 total. There were 55 at least. Some say 60, some say more. W.H.L. Wallace had a division in that tree line directly in front of you. Some 5,000 Federal troops. As the Confederates were coming from the west, approaching the east, and you are facing the east, they came upon that thicket, that forest. Now, this was early in the war, and mistakes were made that would not have been made later. But rather than go around this and flank it, the Confederate troops decided to assault, and they assaulted several times across this open field into that thicket where those Federal soldiers had gathered. I am going to walk you in real time as a Confederate infantryman would have walked when he made this charge against the Hornet's Nest across this bloody open ground. As I said, mistakes were made early in the war that would not have been made later. And what should have happened here is flanking them, encapsulating them, and moving on. But they didn't think like that at that time. I noted later that the Confederate infantryman impressed me at this battle because he hurled himself at positions with no apparent concern for his own well-being, and was successful ultimately here at about 5:30 in the afternoon. However, that length of time gave me time to organize my last line of defense and set up lines that were enabling us to hold until the reinforcements came over from Buell's Army of the Ohio overnight. We just crested a very small hill, and now we're going into the Hornet's Nest. Slight incline, and you are walking as the Confederate soldiers who charged that Hornet's Nest walked. That is the infamous Hornet's Nest, or the famous Hornet's Nest, depending upon which side you view the question. You can now see the fencing along the sunken road and old farm road, and you can see how the road goes into the distance, some few hundred yards, drops down to a small creek, then back to the Federal infantry in the Hornet's nest. This was the center. You are moving in real time as the Confederates who charged the Hornet's nest themselves moved. The fire would have been extremely heavy by now against the oncoming infantry. This was so close to the artillery that they cut the fuses of the shells smooth with the surface of the shell to explode almost instantly upon leaving the muzzle of the cannon. There is the Hornet's nest and the sunken road. You are seeing what those Confederate soldiers saw when they charged the Hornet's nest and the sunken road. And you see how dense the woods are. And into the distance, dropping down to the creek and then back up the hill and back toward, this is the view at about this time of day, right as the Federal soldiers were indeed surrounded and surrendered at about 5:30 on April the 6th. But this valiant effort gave me time to establish my last line of defense and save the day. Now you may see the sunken road, the split rail fence, and the Hornet's nest. Walking the ground with General Grant. I bid you a fond farewell.